Welcome to the second edition of FUSO Talks. The topic is courage, which we will see is also kind of related to change, because it takes a lot of courage to change things. Today we have some examples of people who have changed their life to do something meaningful.
And the people which you have chosen, it's you, that you have perspectives which have nothing to do with your day-to-day business. This has something to do with you as a human being, because most of you are leaders. And leaders have always to take consequence and responsibility for people. And that means we have to make us think beyond the day-to-day business. We are employees, we don't put ourselves on the risk. Who put themselves every day under personal risk into situations which are very, very uncommon and also very, very unpleasant.
Actually, when I was in high school, when I was 17 years old, I saw a photograph from Rwanda refugee camp, and that changed my life totally. I have been working in the area of peace building in what is called conflict zones for the last 15 years. And my initial area of expertise is what is called disarmament. That is collecting weapons after the conflict from the combatants. And sometimes, mainly we collect small arms, but sometimes we have to collect tanks or Scud missiles, these heavy weapons. This is in Afghanistan. And then, this is also in Afghanistan, smaller one. And this is in Côte d'Ivoire. And then, after collecting weapons, they are still combatants. And then they have to be demobilized and discharged from armed group. And after they are demobilized, we need to train them in other vocations. So we provide vocational training, such as carpenters and carpentries, or tailoring, and so on. So I used to work for disarmament for 7 or 8 years, but I decided to leave this job, and I decided to leave the United Nations when I was around 30 years old. When I was working for disarmament with the UN, I came to feel that there are some negative effects that we are creating on the ground. Of course, we were doing disarmament for good cause. We are given vocational training to be independent, but we quit job because the boss was not really helping us. But as long as we are ex-combatants, you will continue helping us, right? And then when I heard them saying that, I came to realize that there's something wrong with that. While I was in the UN, I tried to change some of the program in a huge bureaucratic office. I realized it will take ages to make even such a small changes. And then I decided to leave the UN. And
how do you encourage yourself? How do you create that will to do that?
yeah, and as long as we know that if we do not go in there, there are people who simply die, or there are certain people that if we do not go in, they cannot continue living, or even the rest of the world do not know they exist there or they died there. So it's one of the fact that we know that what we are doing could change something, and as long as we have that belief within, that becomes the reason for us to mitigate risk as much as we can, and to be better prepared and to make decisions to cross the line.
Controversy, something that's helping you actually?
If you get on the internet, you'll find out that I am the most controversial preacher in the world. That's not me saying that. That's people in the world saying I'm the most controversial preacher. So I believe that anyone that's going to stand up for something, stand up for what's right, you're going to become controversial. And if you continue to do it for the rest of your life, you're going to become very controversial. People can say whatever they want to, good or bad about me. I don't care. I believe in freedom of speech. There's a lot of bad stories on the internet, but if there's one good one that it's very hard to top. 2013, I received, the Mother Teresa Award for social justice. Now, what I'm going to tell you, I don't know if you know much about missionaries. I am a real missionary. I've been a missionary for 19 years. A lot of churches don't like me because I speak out harshly against the church. I believe that the church has been in Africa too long, teaching the gospel, but at the end of the day, people are still standing with their hand out. What we have started to create in Africa and other countries is a welfare system. And I believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is more than teaching people to beg. I believe we need to give people a skill and teach them a talent. Do you realize in third world countries right now, at an orphanage, you're asked to leave at 15 years old? Especially, do you realize that more than 70% of those children end up in prostitution? Who has created that? Who is the blame for most of that? People don't like me saying it, but the church. The church has created and built more than 90-some% of those orphanages. So we not only have 6 orphanages, we built a VOTEC school that teaches auto mechanics, it teaches woodworking, it teaches welding, and it teaches seamstress. So you got all of these child soldiers that are there that no one is working to rehabilitate. Now, if you don't work to rehabilitate a child soldier and victims of war, you got a very good chance that on a 10-year cycle, another civil war is going to begin by the victims of that war. History maker and success. What do you want to be in life? 30 years ago, I couldn't read or write. But something happened in here, it begins in here, that I wanted to change my life. I think real success begins right here, in the heart. Knowing that you've done right. History maker is when your name goes down in history because of what you are doing. I went through your plant the other day, and I'm just assuming that everybody here works at this plant. And I noticed something that was very proud to be a part of. The assembly line was moving on. I noticed one guy came through with a little cart of bolts. And his job was just to keep all the bolts inside of the containers so they never run out. Because that assembly line, if somebody runs out of bolts, if somebody don't have the right tools, if they end up running out, the assembly line stops. But I noticed production was so good in this plant. But if you think it's really good, you'll never be fully successful. Because there's always room to get better. There's always room to expand bigger. So what I can tell you today, you might sit here and you might think that you just work for a company that you're going to retire one day and get a little pension from. That's all you're working for. Maybe you need to get another job. Because I see something more in this company. I see something bigger in this company. It's just being a part of it. But imagine if you can be the history maker of this company to help it to produce more. Imagine if you can think of something to help the production line go quicker, go faster, make more money. All of a sudden, you start making history. And then what happens? Success. We got a lot of successful people. We got a lot of unbelievable people. We got people in this room that can be history makers, okay? But imagine if we all came together. Imagine if we all began working together, taking each other's thoughts. Imagine the expansion that something can have. It could be the top in the world. It could be the number one in the world. You could be here to change lives. You could be here to do remarkable things and be very successful. Or you could be here just taking up a chair. But I believe everyone in this room, we all want success. And success comes through changing other people's lives. Thank you.
For me, sometimes I feel some risk for my life. I want to know what do you motivate, or how do you exclude this kind of the mindset of risk?
There's something that sticks out in mine, and it's one of the favorite stories or verses, whatever you'd like to call it, is James chapter 4, verse 17. It says, if you know you should do something and not do it, you have sinned.
How do you inspire people to do what you think is the right way? How do you lead your teams? What's the mechanisms?
And the only way that can happen is I got to have key people. And those key people got to believe in what I'm doing. If they don't believe in what I'm doing, they need to find another job. So for them people, for a favor to be on all of us, we all got to believe together. We all got to learn to work together. We got to share that same vision.
How do you keep the juice going on? How do you keep what you do despite that energy that tries to pull you back? How you keep going and spread the change to make your point or do what you believe you're doing?
See, the biggest thing in life is that you know that you're right in what you're doing. Whether it was right or wrong, he didn't care. He didn't even care what it was all about. He would look around and whatever the majority was, he would jump on that wagon. It's not about the majority. It's about what's right. And when you know what's right, that gives you every incentive not to quit, not to stop, because you know it's right.
It comes down to myself, with how much I would like to do that. But one of the challenges is, especially when we are a child, if parents reject our initiative, it becomes quite difficult. But also there's a way to convince them, as long as we believe, even as a child, that we want to do this and do that. We have to, prove that we are serious, I'm serious. And especially my parents, they never traveled abroad. They didn't go to university. They were born in the village and they work in the area. So even now, they cannot really pronounce some of the countries that I used to work, like Sierra Leone or Cote d'Ivoire. They don't really recognize. But from what I repeatedly insisted since I was a child, or when I decided to work in this for this peace building job, they are now convinced that I'm serious.
But the question is, in the day-to-day life, it's called civil courage. You are asked for your opinion. You are asked to stand up. And that is, you stand up for the team. You stand up for your colleague. You stand up for your opinion. And that is making a difference between someone who is managing things and someone who is leading people. And this is what we have to show every day. We have to show the courage to take the risk. And this is a very small risk to compare to what you do, because it's not existential. And to speak up when you think something is going wrong. And if Mr. Seya believes in something which is wrong, Mr. Nair, then you will tell him this. And you have to do this also when you are witnessing other things. This is our obligation. And we have a lot of privileges that we can and we are allowed. What is the consequence? And especially to the younger ones here in the room, you are the future. And if this company is not appreciating your point of view, you know what? Then this company is wrong. If we cannot take the truth, if we cannot take your opinion, then we, the top management, are wrong. Then we should leave. The most important thing is that you stand in a very constructive way and say no or yes, but not because someone else is telling you to say so. And this is, for me, the takeaway for the courage. And this is not an excuse for one of us to say, yeah, but I have not the skills. All of you have skills. And please, this is something what we want to have at FUSO Talks. Open the mind and take away for the job and for your private life whatever you can take away from that. Because it's more. And you have all in it. And there's no restriction. And in the next years, we will have either we change or we will doom. It's very simple.